Welcome to Fitness and Finance Radio. I am your co-host, Tony Shore, and it's going to be a hot one today. 85 in town, 95 in the valley. Oh, wait. That's the California weather report. We're not quite there yet in Virginia, are we?
No. I wish. Soon.
No, but I'm here with the magnificent duo, the team, the gold medal winning couples, Fitness and Finance gold medal winner, Jeffrey Smith and Jennifer Scherer, gold medal winners, I should say. Not in the Olympics, but in the realm of fitness and finance. This is as good as it gets.
I'll tell you a great story about the Olympics. One time I had an event, a grand opening of my office, and I had invited many people. And one of my clients, he's been a client of mine for years. He's an awesome guy. And he was sitting across from me in my office, and he could see the door. I couldn't. I could just see him. And we were talking, and we were just, catching up. And he looks up, and I knew somebody walked in, and he goes, "Holy jeez, look at this one." And I go, I look over my shoulder. I go, yeah, that's Jennifer. At the time, I said, that's my girlfriend. And he was like really embarrassed.
That's right.
And then he comes in and he starts talking to her, and he's like, he doesn't know what to say, because he's like, I think he's embarrassed. So he's like, are you in the Olympics?
Is that what he said? Because I knew the story when he goes, "Oh, look at this one, got a looker," and then you're like, "Well, hey, that's my girlfriend." He's all embarrassed. But then he said, "Were you in the Olympics?" He's
like, "Were you in the Olympics?" I was like, "Man, you got to get out of there." Yeah,
I didn't know what to say.
I needed to throw him a lifeline. I was like, "We got to keep it
awkward."
I like to play sports.
Yeah. So now, whenever I see her, like for the first time in a little bit, I go, "Holy geez."
I do like how you do that voice. And you asked me how I was doing earlier, and just, "Hello, I'm cold, and there are wolves after me."
Like Timberwolves?
Yeah, I turned 60 this week. What do you guys think? I don't look at her. I don't act 60.
60.
Let's put it that way.
That's insane.
That doesn't make sense to me.
But it's still young. 60 is the new 40. Yeah. I don't feel it at all.
Do you know what? You know why? Because he had a snowmobile as a kid.
Oh,
that's why.
That's why he looks so young.
Yep.
My parents.
That's my skincare routine is regular snowmobiling. I don't know. Don't know where you're going with that, Jeff. But thank you.
It's the fact that you had a stress-free.
Yeah, I mean that's it. You got to have fun. You got to keep a sense of humor. I think that helps a lot.
I think so.
Yeah. You have to have stress relievers, and I think I think the best thing is the health care routine that you help people with, Jennifer, is the biggest thing. Of course, I always use humor and music. I think music helps. I listen to a lot of music, and I really get into it, and that helps some people.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
It's like an escape.
Yeah, music can really make a difference. I mean, in when working out and healing, I mean, certain music really helps.
Yes,
absolutely.
I agree. It can actually motivate a lot of people.
Yeah, we should do it. We should do a show on that someday. But today, I'm going to jump right to our topic because I think it's a good one: market volatility and metabolism. Which is just a really timely topic because I looked at CNBC. I made the mistake of pulling up CNBC and Fox Business News to look at the stock tickers. And today, just with the spike in oil and the job numbers weren't quite as good as they thought. So, but the market always rebounds. Now's the time to buy. That's the way I look at it. But there is a lot of people are concerned about the market volatility, and I guess metabolism and our physical health will play into this. So, why the combo platter? How does this work together, Jennifer?
Well, in my mind, my clients, especially, they'll step on the scale and ask me, "Man, Jennifer, what happened? I'm weighing myself every day," and they get really frustrated when they see the fluctuations of the up and the down.
Yeah, like, hey, I'm starting to eat right and work out, but I went up a pound this week.
And a lot of it alludes to, is this worth it? And it's that short term instant, they need to see instantly that their efforts are working in a positive way. And that volatility is the same way in the market. You know, those short-term fluctuations can make people abandon their long-term strategies. And it can be very difficult as a fitness professional to get them to buy in for the long game.
Right.
And I think Jeff faces the same thing with his clients in the finance. They're probably calling them as soon as the price in the market drops down and, you know, should I get out? It's like,
but if you have a good long-term financial plan, like a lot of, if Jeff's clients have listened to him and they trust the plan, same with you, Jennifer, it's a long-term plan. No, we're not looking at one specific week in your life or month in your life or even year. You've got a long-term plan for success, right?
Yeah, Jeff? I always talk to people, you know, I feel like we outplan the return piece. And not everybody has an abundant, you know, overabundance, but there are tighter margins for certain people. But most people that I deal with, we can, you know, plan around. I usually don't ever look at you know, really big returns as a need inside of the plan. I look at very conservative forecasting. We do a lot of different models through, you know, the software that we use. So I keep that always fairly low, because if it works at a low amount, it'll work at a decent return as well.
Yeah.
And so I think I don't get the calls that I used to get. You know, I mean, I think most people know who've been with me for a while that we ride out these things and we look at things on a quarterly basis. You know, if there's a big issue, I mean, I think, like, for example, we have, you know, some third-party money managers that during, you know, right around COVID, you know, the algorithms were to sell before it happened. You know, they didn't know no one knew what it was going to be, but we were, you know, in the models, most of the models were at 40% cash without knowing how bad, you know, that next phase would be. So, I mean, there are things that there are indicators, there are things that we look at on a regular basis in order to make changes. But by and large, we're going to rely more on the planning than chasing any return whatsoever. So, you know, volatility is bound to happen. We just don't know when and for how long.
Right.
Well, and there's a parallel in the fitness world where the scale is going to fluctuate. And I say that going in, you know, try to weigh yourself once a week, not once a day.
Right.
Because of the water retention and your sodium and, you know, your glycogen stores, there's so much that's so much at play. And you can do everything right. You can eat a balanced diet, you can train consistently, hydrate well, sleep well, and the scale can still go up 2 pounds overnight. And that should not be your gauge of how well you're doing.
Well, you have inflammation from working out. You have, you know what I mean? And just holding on to that water, like you said. Yeah. That happens just as a means of your body recovering.
Well, and it's such a dynamic system for someone to treat it just like a spreadsheet doesn't make any sense. You know, and that's why I try to zoom way out from the scale and look at trends, you know, over the course of a 3-month time frame where we're measuring. That's why we do all those deep dive assessments. We're looking at your strength, we're looking at your balance, we're looking at, you know, your cardio capacity. And those are the things that really need to be measured and serve as motivators, because if you're putting in the work, you're going to see improvement in those in those areas.
Let me ask you something, because I went through this. Well, I'm asking because I know the answer already because you took me through this. But when I was heavier and I was fluctuating, you know, yo-yoing in diets and all this stuff, I would just say, geez, my metabolism isn't like, you know, that of someone else. You know, I always try to isolate it and make it more of an excuse than the reality, you know. And it wasn't until you walked me through a lot of that stuff that I realized that, you know, that can be, you know, are there situations where people's metabolism are different than other people's? I mean, is there, but what are the primary reasons why somebody would say, you know, my metabolism isn't working? My metabolism, is broken.
It's broken. Yeah, we talked about that last time. Yeah. Well, insulin resistance is a big one. You know, if you're diagnosed with insulin resistance, you're going to have a harder time achieving results, but doesn't make it impossible. Just means it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Our metabolic flexibility is somewhat genetic as well. You know, we do have a lot of control over our environment as well as far as what foods we're eating and how well we're sleeping and, our exercise, but also some people are predisposed to being obese, and that doesn't mean that they can't change it. Again, they're just going to need to work a little bit harder.
Right.
So
my mom and dad would eat a bowl full of ice cream every single night of their lives.
I would do that.
Yeah, I would do that. I love that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying people should do this. It's definitely not something people should do, but they did, and they never gained a pound. They're both my parents are super skinny. They're short, they're skinny. I don't know what happened. I'm not adopted, I swear. But other places in the family, like my mom's mom and her sisters, and there are big boned, heavier people who don't. And so I always think, and I know people who are skinny who eat like a horse and don't gain weight. And when I eat that way, I just see my weight go up and down if I eat better and eat right, my weight goes down. If I eat less, my weight goes down. If I eat more, if I eat what I want to eat, if I eat half the pizza, my weight goes up. I mean,
pretty good indicator.
My weight goes up and down, but I see people who are heavy and they really diet hard and they hardly lose any weight. And maybe they're probably not doing the right things. They're not working with Jennifer. But I see super skinny people who just pound it down. Now, I think part of that is we don't see what the rest of their day is like, but anytime I eat with them, I'm like, they order the biggest thing, the worst thing for you. And I'm like, there's not an ounce of body fat on this person. How can they eat like that?
Yeah.
That's true.
How do you explain that, Jennifer?
I mean, there's so much that goes into it. There's at the endocrine, the endocrine system, if your thyroid is out of balance, if your liver enzymes are out of balance,
sure.
If you have a low muscle mass, remember, for every pound of muscle, instead of body fat, you're burning exponentially more calories at rest.
Sure.
So a person who weighs 300 pounds and 200 of it is muscle, they're going to automatically be burning more energy versus somebody who weighs 300 pounds and only 100 of it is muscle.
Sure.
So it really does matter. Muscle matters. And that's why I tell people, like, you want as much muscle on your frame as you possibly can.
Well, I mean, we've seen people that do the in-body and they look like normal, almost thin, and they're 30% body fat. You're like, holy crap.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
it can be, looks can be deceiving is what you're saying.
Yeah.
And different people have different metabolisms though, right?
Oh,
I mean, not to use that as an excuse, because I think a lot of people I see, wow, that guy's skinny. And then what I'm not seeing is he cycles 15 miles a day, or he works out every morning and every evening. So, and I don't. So maybe that's it, right?
Well, I think dialing into who you are is such a valuable thing. And I mean, people do vary. I mean, there's always constants, and I shouldn't be talking about Jennifer's thing, but I mean, the reality is that there are, some universal things, but there are individual situations that need to be addressed differently. I'll just give you an example. I did a VO2 max, which is a standard test for athletes to find out, a lot of different, information, but it's really an overall health for your cardiovascular system, in a lot. Anyway, one of the most interesting things that I found out about it was when I cycle, I burned fat exclusively for a fuel source for a half an hour before it went into glycogen. And then when I did the run portion of it, it was the opposite. I was running on glycogen stores immediately. And I didn't last a half an hour on the treadmill where, even though my speed was increasing so it's really interesting. So I think you also train, or what you do over time consistently matters, right? So if you're doing a type of exercise over and over and over again, your body becomes so efficient in that area that it can do anything. You can do anything in that area. But anyway.
Yeah. So I get that question all the time. How can I have the same diet as my husband and he never gains weight?
Right.
I look at the food and I gain weight. A lot of times though, the interesting thing with that is, at least from my experience, is that a lot of times they don't have a formal diagnosis. I can't explain, oh, you have polycystic ovarian syndrome and that's why. You know, a lot of times it's
Sure.
usually
It can be
they don't
complex. It gets complex
very
because
complex.
I've never heard any of those words. So,
Yeah, very complex. But their metabolic flexibility, right, from a, you know, cellular at the cellular level, their body could be burning a higher percentage of glycogen versus fat
sure.
compared to their spouse,
Mhm.
and
You
they just don't see it at that level. And they might be eating the same amount of carbohydrates as their spouse, and really they need to be eating a higher protein and a lower amount of carbohydrates in order to stay in the same burning capacity as their spouse, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And
It
for
does.
me,
And I want to interject really quick here, Jeff, because this is so important. What I hear both of you saying, Jeff, what you said, and Jennifer, what you just said is, and I think this relates to the topic directly, market volatility and metabolism. To figure out these things, the solution and how you need to react to market volatility and to your metabolism and losing weight or gaining weight or staying healthy, it depends on your personal situation. Like
Yeah.
what you said earlier, Jeff, about market volatility and with the conflict in Iran
yeah,
and with possible inflation or gas prices. Some people will really need to make adjustments, and some people might want to make market moves. Other people who are in a different situation, they might want to spend money and really jump heavy into the market and put
mhm,
more into it right now. Other people might have to switch some things and stay more steady or get more safer options. But it depends on their personal situation. It's the same with looking at, oh, it's my metabolism. Well,
mhm.
yeah, everybody's metabolism might be a little different, but there are a lot of factors that play a part that are specific to an individual. Is that what I'm
Yeah.
hearing you both say?
Well, yeah, and I think okay, so just again, before I met Jennifer, I did some
You
CrossFit.
were sad and lonely.
I was
Okay,
so
we get
great.
that. We
Yeah,
get that.
100%.
Yeah.
I was doing CrossFit, and they said, just do this for food, right? So then I was fasting, and then I sort of got in a calorie deficit. Then I would catch up, and then it would store as fat. There was this whole thing, and then when Jennifer said, I need you to start eating breakfast, I was like, you're crazy. You don't know the science. I'm like, somebody.
Wait, Jeff,
And,
you thought you had the answer
I
and
was like,
you didn't try.
what? I was like, okay, I trust you. I'll do it, but I don't know about, what this looks like. And I mean, it was like, within a week, I started seeing significant difference in,
Look at that.
how I felt, I didn't feel hungry later in the day. I felt, satisfied all the way through. Anyway, there's a lot of things that go into it. And I think what my point is that we have these preconceived notions because of Facebook and because of Instagram and all
TikTok and all the
constantly being
places.
inundated with ads for losing weight, for being healthy, for, and everybody that does these things are fitness models. You know what I mean? They all look like they've been, they're selling this system and they look a certain way. And so you automatically make the jump that that's how they got there. Well, that's not how they got there.
Well, and can we parallel that to the finance sector?
Sure.
I mean, do you see the same thing in your industry where people look at the bright and shiny?
Oh my gosh, I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they come to you and say,
remember when pot stocks were a thing. I was like, okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I was like, if
And then
you're
you-
telling me a hot pot stock tip, I think we're in trouble there. I think we're going to be like, no, we're going to, I mean, there's things out there that may have some good legs underneath them, but, we're also all about making sure that, we have,
long-term financial stability is what your plan has, right?
We have a lot of, metrics to look at these things.
Sure.
And, I mean, we're going to do fundamentals right. You know what I mean? I always say this, and I say this earlier on our show, when we first started, but we want to be 100% boring in our planning, because if we're doing it right, I think about this, right? I play tennis sometimes, and I love to dive and lay out and get the best shot in the world. But I'll just tell you, if I have to do that, it's because I was out of position and I wasn't doing something right. So if we have to find a stock that gets you 25%, we're in trouble. We're not doing something right. You know what I mean? If we hit something like that, great.
Sure.
But the idea is that we don't have to go anywhere near that number in order to achieve what we're trying to achieve.
That's huge.
And so I think that people have to have a different mindset. I think they want to get rich quick. They want to get fit overnight. It don't work that way. And I meant that on purpose. That's not the right English.
It doesn't work that way, but yes.
But it doesn't work. And there are people that will hit it, and then there's one person out of 2 million, and everybody's like, oh, I guess that's the way to do it. It's not the way to do it. That is.
And on my side of the fence, when you're thinking about ways to improve your metabolic flexibility, that, I'm talking now about diagnoses notwithstanding, right? So I'm talking just what is within our control to have an impact on muscle, which is a huge driver of metabolic flexibility, mitochondria at the cellular level, and then you've got, hormonal at the hormone level, and your blood glucose. So those 4 areas, muscle, mitochondria, your hormones, and blood glucose, if you can resistance train to build muscle on the regular 2 to 3 sessions per week, that's going to hugely impact your ability to use the food you're eating as fuel as opposed to storing, right? If you move in terms of the mitochondrial level, that we're talking about moving, do not spend your day sitting. Get up and move around. Even if it's just increasing your steps, even if it's not formally doing cardiovascular, you're not sitting on a bike or walking on a treadmill, but you're trying to aim for, 7,000 steps a day, right? You're moving. From a hormonal standpoint, sleep. You have got to sleep. You've got to get proper sleep and manage your stress. And then lastly, the blood glucose. So you need to eat balanced meals. You need to make sure that you're getting the fruits and vegetables, the lean proteins, the complex carbohydrates in the right portions for your goals, right? So
can we talk more about the mitochondria? How do we, because one of the things that I learned, but again, I want a professional. It's like, when you're doing like explosive movements and you're doing things that are really hard in working out, doesn't that build the mitochondria? Isn't that something that we adapt to through ADP kind of stuff?
Yeah. We could bore you on this, but
come on, let's get nerdy. Let's get nerdy.
If you think about the density in your cells of mitochondria, when you're doing something where you're pushing the envelope from a heart health standpoint, when your heart rate is starting to elevate, you're on an incline, you're, starting to breathe heavy, those mitochondria are increasing in density. Those are the powerhouses of your cell. Right. And when it comes to longevity, they're doing all kinds of studies now on the mitochondrial density of the cells. And those people that push the threshold, they're elevating their heart rate on a purposeful level regularly, have a longer
lifespan.
A longer lifespan. So you've got to do the best that you can in terms of cardiovascular exercise. And that can be walking, that can be stair climbing, rowing, swimming. It doesn't have to be out jogging or high impact. You can do something that's, easier on your joints, but you've got to get that heart rate elevated.
Plyometrics, jump rope.
Yeah. And not only that, we're talking about at the cellular level, but what about like the fat cells? When you're doing cardio, that's how that's the oxidation of fat cells when you're doing your cardiovascular exercise. So that's huge. If you're not seeing results, that's usually one of the things I tend to look at is, are you at least getting 180 minutes per week of fat burn zone cardio? And that's where you have to measure your heart rate and make sure that you're.
I think that has to be well-rounded too. You have people that over cardio and people that don't do any, and I think the problem is that there's so many people out there saying, don't do cardio, it's bad for you. Or, there's people that, only do endurance racing. And, I think the fact is, if you want to be healthy, it depends on what your goals are. But if you want to be healthy, you have to have a proper balance of everything. Just like in finances, you have to have a proper balance of, you have to have your spending in check. You have to have, your savings, bolstered up. You have to have some good, decent rate of return with your risk spread out over several different types of allocations. You have to think through a balanced kind of lifestyle in general. Like, I think anytime you're over heavy in one area, it's just going to show, and there's going to be a lack somewhere else. So staying in sort of that balanced mode, I always, spend a lot of time reflecting and staying in meditation. And I would write a bunch of stuff of, where I sort of felt out of whack. I would really check in with things. And that's something that's served me well going forward, is making sure that, everything's sort of in alignment. You want to make sure that, just like the food that you're eating, that's balanced, what you're consuming with your eyes and ears too, is important too. So,
well, Jeff, and you did a great job laying out some of the solutions to the problems behind market volatility and metabolism, especially on the metabolism side. But regarding market volatility, Jeff, you just addressed it a little bit. But before we go, what are some things people need to be doing, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't panic. I know that's a big one. Always wear sunscreen. That's a big one.
Definitely.
Right.
Well, I think honestly, dollar cost averaging is something that's tried and true. It's always been around, and it's purposeful, right? So if you're constantly putting money into the market on a regular basis, you're going to hit these times where prices are on sale, right?
Yeah.
So I think when you look at it from that perspective, or if you're sitting on cash and the market's down, it may be an opportunity if you're that type of person. If you know what you're doing and you're comfortable with taking on a little risk, when most people say, oh my gosh, I can't stay in this, I need to get out, these are times to buy. And this is how people really make money in the market long term. But most people will sell at this time and buy on a high.
Yeah.
Most investors do that because they just don't have the maturity in that emotional state of when things are in flux. And so my job really is to keep people grounded and on a steady sort of basis, which is why we plan around these types of things, right? So the more we can stay steady, you need a lighthouse in order to see where you're going to, dock, right? You can't just, you need one thing that's steady in the storm.
Right.
And when you have a plan, you can focus on the long term and not just look at the 6-foot view. You're going to be a winner.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk about then, but doing it on your own is the big mistake I think a lot of people make, especially during times like this. You really need a plan and really need to work with a trusted financial services professional and a trusted fitness professional like yourself, Jennifer. So before we go, how can our listeners out there get a hold of you? I know if you have questions, if you want to get a plan in place for your fitness and health or for your finances, how can they do that? And what are you offering?
So visit our website, and it's fitnessfinancepro.com. And then from there, we are offering a 30-minute free discovery call where you can have a consultation with Jeff and myself.
Yeah.
Wow, I think that's great. And that's a no charge, no obligation consultation call. I love that. And it's so important. And this isn't, you guys aren't doing this show as an infomercial. This is a show to try to help people get a dialogue going, make them ask the right questions, to help the community. It's an educational show, and that's what it's meant to be. But at the same time, to make real progress, you do need to find a trusted financial services professional and a trusted fitness trainer and health trainer, somebody that knows what they're doing, whether that's you guys or someone else. And it's great that you offer this consultation. I think it's so important. The show is valuable, and we have fun while we're doing it sometimes, right, Jeff?
I love it. Yeah, I really do enjoy it.
Right? I mean, you wear the hat. I mean, this is fun, right? I mean, you've got a Canadian hat on. Why not?
And you don't see it, but he's got a Canadian shirt on too.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They're tonight. They're out west.
Oh yeah.
So
okay. All right. All right. Hockey. Yeah. Jeff's a hockey guy. We all know that.
Yeah.
That's good. And I live in the state of hockey.
You do.
Minnesota is the state of hockey. That's what we call ourselves. So that's awesome. Well, hey, anything else, guys, before we go?
No, Tony, thank you.
No,
and,
I think
you're having a wonderful birthday dinner tonight.
Oh yeah, my birthday dinner's tonight.
Yes,
we're going to this Italian place. They make their own homemade pasta, and they make their own sausage. So gonna have a little pasta inside. Gonna splurge a little bit. Maybe not the healthiest meal, but we hardly ever go there or do this. So
nice.
Yeah.
Charlie tells me you're a butcher. Tell me, do you like your own sausage?
My gosh.
The movie lines. I love it. That's good,
Oh.
Jeff.
Mhm.
All right. Well, listeners, we left you with that little treat, which is so you got that going for you now.
Which is nice.
Kind of a payoff for staying with us through the whole show. Jeff gives you the little payoff at the end. People who left earlier in the show didn't get that.
No,
right?
we're
I mean,
good.
that's why you gotta tune in and stay till the very end.
That's right.
And it makes it valuable for the
Mhm.
listener and viewer. All right. Well, hey, great show today once again. That does it for today's episode of Fitness and Finance Radio with our hosts, Jennifer Scherer and Jeffrey Smith.